I bought a book maybe about a year ago, 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And I never read the book. It was Batman Urban Legends #1. I've actually bought #2 as well. And I don't know why I never got to it. To be honest with you, I've been doing this a lot over the past 2 or 3 years, buying books and not reading them. So I decided the other day I need to break out some of these comic books that I've bought and just not read. Like, I don't know why I haven't read them. Part of it is due to lack of excitement to read certain books. The cover might pull me in. I thumb through the pages, as I've told you before, when I'm in a comic book store. The art looks interesting and the cover grabs me. I'll pick up the book. That's how I decide what comic books to pick up. I'll be honest with you. I don't necessarily look into the stories in advance, other than some comic books that definitely garner more excitement. All right, comic books like the Batman Spawn release. I think it was it earlier this year or last year? I think it might have been last year, like late last year that was released. I picked that up and it was great. I didn't realize it was going to be a one off. I was kind of excited to see the second part of that story play out, but to my surprise, no more. That is it. I hope they actually make a second part or several parts to that story because it ended on a cliffhanger. I have no idea why they did that. Anyway, Batman Urban Legends. I guess this is an effort to tell several stories adjacent to other things going on in Batman comics, kind of expounding on the things going on in the background. So there is, let me see if I can remember. I just read this, so I should remember. There is one, two, three, four stories in this one book, four short stories. Actually, very well. My least enjoyable of the stories is Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, mainly because the story seemed to be focused on a relationship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Completely uninterested. I just wasn't interested in that at all. So that one didn't really grab me because it really just wasn't compelling. I read comic books to get either anti-hero or superhero accounts, or hero accounts in Batman's case, because he's not a superhero technically. And really, I don't really care for peripheral stories. I think I've mentioned that before. So thus the Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy story, yeah, just wasn't interesting. Not only would the story in many ways pushed an agenda, which again, there's ways to push an agenda and make the story interesting, but it just wasn't that. So you have Red Hood and Batman as the first story told, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, The Outsiders, Grifter, and the Long Con is the name of the last story. That was actually a pretty good one. All in all, aside from the Harley Quinn Poison, and it's not because they're women, the story just wasn't interesting. There was nothing about that whole work that really drew me in. I tried to read through it as quick as possible just to get to the next story. The Outsiders story was actually really good. It was actually really good. It was Black Lightning and Katana. But the story I want to focus on is the first account in this book, and this is Red Hood and Batman. And the premise of the story is there is a new drug going around Gotham City, and they call them cheer pods. Bruce Wayne, Batman, doing some of his investigative work, figures out that the compound used in Scarecrow's drug is actually used, or one of the compounds, the root compound, is actually used in these cheer pods. So he's investigating, trying to figure out what Scarecrow's link. Scarecrow is allegedly dead and or missing. And so he's trying to figure out what's going on. Is Scarecrow actually alive? Is this his work? Is it one of his henchmen's work? He's trying to figure that out. And along with that happening, the Red Hood is trying to figure it out. Now, there's beef between Batman, Bruce Wayne, and the Red Hood, Jason Todd, because the Red Hood kills people. Of course, Batman doesn't like this. The story is very dynamic. It was actually exceptionally well. I'm actually upset with myself for not reading this earlier. But as I said, I probably have a good 60 or so comic books I've bought that I haven't read yet. I do this a lot, as I said. So, Lord willing, I'm going to get to those comic books and read some of those and maybe have some reviews. But that first story is good. I actually like the way they approached urban legends, right? Tell you ever read a comic book and you I wonder what was going on in the background, while this other thing was happening, while this other story was happening. What was Batman doing on the side? Is this the only thing he was focused on? And you kind of get that view with Batman Urban Legends. And even though it is centered around Batman, it's the stories actually cover other things around what's going on around Batman, if that makes sense. But the first account in this Urban Legends book is actually very good. A very well thought out account. And what I liked about it is it covered the different dynamics of Batman. Like, you just felt like, okay, this is a good Batman story where we're getting to see some of the dynamics of Batman, the beef between him and Jason Todd, mainly because the Red Hood, aka Jason Todd, he kills people. Batman's not rocking with that. So while Jason Todd is operating, or the Red Hood is operating in Gotham City, he uses a gun with rubber bullets. They kind of give you some of the backstory of Jason Todd as Robin. You know, they do a flashback, and I liked it. It was a very quick story that really did justice. Like, this was one of those books where, as I read, I could not believe the story was so short, yet pulled me in. You see Red Hood, he's looking for where these drugs are produced. He catches one guy. That guy gives him some information, leads him to this apartment building. He gets to the apartment building. He finds a kid there and his mom, who has overdosed on these chair pods. What the chair pods do is they give you a sense of euphoria. And the problem is, people have been stuck in this sense of euphoria, and they've walked in front of cars, jumped off buildings. As a matter of fact, one guy that Batman saves in this story, he's standing at the edge of a roof and he's saying something to the effect of, he loves the roller coaster that him and his dad just went on, and he wants to go again. And he's getting ready to jump off the roof, not even realizing what's going on. Batman swoops down as he jumps, saves this dude. Pretty amazing. I found in my comic book reading that the most basic stories, now when I say basic, I mean basic in the sense that it focuses on the thing that makes comic books great. Just heroes doing hero things with maybe the dynamic of an anti-hero and some questionable things that they're trying to parse out, trying to work their way through. So Red Hood tries to save this kid. He figures out where the kid's father is. They go to where the kid's father is, only to find out this is the very place producing the cheer pods, which is why he found so many of them next to his mom and in that place where he found the kid. So he's trying to return the kid to his father. If you don't know, Jason Todd's, I believe his mom and dad overdosed, or his mom at least overdosed on drugs. They were killed that same way. So he doesn't want to see this happen to this kid. He's hoping that his father's some low-level goon. Come to find out, his father cares nothing for the mom or the kid. He says the kid has been a pain. I mean, this, like, I'm reading this story and I'm like, wow, this is, wow. I did not expect this to take such a dark turn, but I like it. Now, Batman is trying to work through how he's going to deal with Jason Todd, Red Hood, when he finds out he's in town. And Alfred is explaining to him that, hey, maybe he just needs to speak with Bruce Wayne. The meanwhile, Batman is prepared for a brawl. And it kind of ends on a cliffhanger. I have Urban Legends #2, another book I haven't read yet. So I would like to get back to that. But if you're thinking about purchasing Urban Legends, getting some back issues, at least #1, I can't speak for any of the rest of them. #1 was good. Like I said, barring the story of Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, just wasn't interested. The rest of the stories were very good, very well done. And the art, I will say this, in the day and age where comic book art is just not what it should be, in my humble opinion, I believe there's some subpar artists that are not terrible, but they need a little more practice and a little more experience before they start drawing some of the most iconic characters. But other than that, the art was very good throughout the whole entire book. I am probably going to, moving forward, make sure I pay attention to some of these writers and some of the artists. I've explained this before. I haven't kept up with comic books like I did when I was young. I fell off when I was around, I want to say 19, 20. I was in the military, didn't really want to be PCSing, going different places, carrying comic books with me. So I just stopped collecting. And really, I was just disinterested. A lot of the art and the stories didn't grab me. Picked back up in my, I'd say, mid 30s. I picked back up reading comic books again. And so there's a lot of artists I just haven't kept up with. New artists that I don't know about. Even some artists from the 90s that I really wasn't following like that. So I wasn't really familiar with all their work. One of those names is Ken Lashley. Definitely drew some things back in the 90s, but I wasn't following him. But now, picking up, I think it was X-Men Gold that Ken Lashley drew some things for, and his art is fantastic. So now I've been, wherever I can pick up a good book drawn by Ken Lashley, I will definitely pick it up in hopes that the story is good as well. But Batman Urban Legends, #1, if you are on the fence, I would say it's probably worth your money.